our mission statement is a world free of poverty and shared prosperity, and now we've added the livable planet. And that sort of explains a little bit why green public procurement is so important to us. So I just want to say a few words, not to take away from the speakers, and then the question and answer session, which I think is probably the most important part. So, the bank believes quite firmly that climate change has a major impact on poverty, hence the new logo and the nice hat. I'll take it off. So the World Bank has embraced GRID, which is green, resilient, and inclusive development approach. So we have GRID everywhere. And actually the World Bank Group, and I'm sorry to my various other MDB partners, we're actually the biggest financier so far of investments in developing countries, with total climate financing, which has amounted to 29.4 billion in FY23. I think we're going to exceed this in FY24, but certainly that makes us the biggest financier. And every single one of our projects has climate co-benefits, and this has become, I think, the most urgent and pressing need that we need to look at. And then if we look at the size of public procurement, now yesterday I was talking about public procurement being 20%. It's probably nearer between 20 and 30% of GDP in all countries. So on average, that's how much of GDP goes through public procurement. It's actually, public procurement becomes a very important enabler of ensuring that our development leads to us not only ending poverty, but also ensuring that it's on a livable planet. I'll say a few words later on when concluding, but I think now let's move on to our esteemed speakers and try and leave some time for questions and answers, because we're standing between you guys and lunch. So thanks very much. And
thank you so much, Anna, and we love your hat. Ladies and gentlemen, we move to our first speaker of the day, Mr. Tanmay Tathagat. Before I invite you, sir, may I say a few words about you? Mr. Tanmay Tathagat is the Director, Environmental Design Solution, and Mr. Tanmay leads the EDS team of multidisciplinary professionals working on projects that embody sustainable solutions. Over the last 30 years, he has worked on issues of climate change mitigation, sustainable development in Asia, Africa, and the US. His work ranges from global and national scale for developing and implementing policies such as energy conservation, building code, energy efficiency labeling program, green finance, and mortgages to integrated building design, constructions, and operations. He has supported leading global organizations on their journey towards sustainability, settling the benchmark for low environmental impact. Mr. Tanmay has supported several public entities for developing and implementing green procurement policies. With those words, may I now invite Mr. Tanmay Tathagat.
Namaskar. Thank you. Pleasure to be here. And for this particular topic, climate change and its how to address the effects of climate change, how to prepare for it, is a topic which is very vast. So for this particular session today, I focus on one aspect of it, which happens to be also particularly complicated from a procurement perspective, which is energy efficiency. How do you factor in energy efficiency in procurement of goods and services, of products and technologies, and are there any good examples of doing that? So in the presentation today, in the next 10 minutes, I'll just briefly touch about uh, these four case studies or four examples where in the last few years we worked in ensuring that some amount of energy efficiency and green is incorporated in public procurement and the experience of doing so. So one of them is the looking at green in affordable housing, which is the PMAY Grameen Yojana. There's already been a lot of work in accelerating that, but how do you make it green? Energy efficient cooling. Uh, Also, an example from Lucknow Development Authority, which was a PMAY urban scheme, and how did we incorporate energy efficiency into that? And the last one was a public entity, a utility, a public utility in Telangana, making its own building net zero. And this was more about the procurement processes. How did they go about getting the right kind of team on board and the procurement for designing that building? So the first one, we do think that green is a big lever for moving energy efficiency in cooling. I don't want to go into the imperative of addressing energy efficiency in cooling. We all know that that's one thing that's going to drive climate change issues considerably, and it affects all aspects of manufacturing, use, and end of life of a product. So, it has environmental impact across the board. When the air conditioner is manufactured, when it is used, there's energy use, and when it's disposed of, there are refrigerants and other things. How does it affect procurement? So, from a procurement perspective, we want products that use maybe recycled material. We want something that follow the relevant environmental norms in their manufacturing. Use phase, we want something that can reduce energy use and therefore emissions, and other performance factors, maybe noise or cooling performance, and use the right kind of refrigerants. And ultimately, we want products that can be handled and disposed of properly. So all of this needs to come in the tender that actually is released at the time of procurement. And how do you think incorporating all of this, right? So conventional tender process, you'd go through, define the basic criteria. Okay, I need this capacity, these many tons, this size, and I want a warranty for 5 years and things like that. And then you do a technical and financial evaluation, and you look at the least cost bid. Now, in the green procurement process, you would add green procurement criteria. There'll probably be a life cycle cost analysis, and the difference is that you would probably then decide based on not just the first cost, but the lowest total cost of ownership, or what's called the life cycle cost. So the total cost of ownership includes acquisition, operating, maintenance, and end of life value, whether it's disposed of, what you get at the end of it, right? And for us, it turned out to be the most useful way of putting in all the criteria and doing the tender evaluation. So, as an example, we did comparison of two kinds of air conditioners, one which is a low initial cost, but lower efficiency also, and a high cost. And we could say, okay, over a life cycle, what is the difference in cost? This was just an exercise done beforehand to work with the procurement team so that there is an understanding that buying something more expensive upfront really is better for the overall life cycle of the product. And in the procurement process, in the conventional process, we added two changes. One, that in the technical evaluation, you're also independently evaluating the green procurement criteria that have been added, and you're looking at life cycle cost assessment. And then based on that, least cost is defined as the total cost of ownership, the lowest total cost of ownership. Now, following this was piloted, and on GEM, a green AC category was created, and it had all the requirements for industry to follow these requirements of efficiency. I'm not going into the technical detail, but they were specified upfront, and you pre-qualified to be called a green AC. And then from a procurement perspective, now it's a single thing, because it's already been defined. Now, the challenge with energy efficiency is that for every product and every service you procure, you can't go into this kind of a detailed analysis. And eventually, there will be standardization of what is green, and you can just simply accept it. For example, energy labeling is a good proxy for saying, okay, I'm buying 5-star air conditioning equipment. But in many cases, it may have to go beyond that. Government of India is right now reviving the eco-mark scheme. The eco-labeling program will give you, in fact, a little bit more leverage in terms of buying green product, because it will not just be energy efficiency, but also the overall environmental impact of that product. The other example, again, quickly running through, was green PMAY housing. And the whole point was, what is green in somebody who's making their own house, and how do you introduce in the green construction process, which is very well structured by the Ministry of Rural Development. And it has a huge impact. Now, so all we did there was added material specifications and 3 or 4 design features that were required from, let's say, enhancing energy efficiency. Let's say there is an insulation required, there's an exhaust fan required for ventilation, there's a light colored roof required. And these were seamlessly added, and the overall process behind it was quite exhaustive. So to get the procurement team and the ministry on board, you have to say, okay, why we are doing it, what is the advantage, how will it be, what is the baseline set, how will you look at the thresholds for performance and things like that. But in the end, it was based on what is based on life cycle cost, the balance between incremental cost and the life cycle cost. And of course, again, this was a very, very price sensitive segment. So it was not even the lowest life cycle. It was a balance. We said, okay, 75% of my basis of selecting a criteria is based on reduced first cost. If something can be done at low cost or no cost, can be put in. So some things were there. And this is now going on. The ministry has added green in the design of the program, and now the criteria are being implemented across. And there is, of course, substantial benefit in improvement in not just energy efficiency, but thermal comfort and the lives of people who are going to be living in these houses. Lucknow Development Authority wanted to do PMAY housing. They made 12,000 houses, followed the similar process of incorporating the requirement for energy efficiency upfront, and their housing actually came out to be lower cost than the conventional housing they were doing earlier, just because they could do it at the design phase. And in this case, the procurement included the specification for their whole team to redesign, to reassess materials and get down to the lowest life cycle cost. The last one is the first ever grid interactive net zero building being built in Hyderabad. And the selection criteria was a modification of the QCBS, which is quality cost based selection. And the criteria, just like I explained, the green criteria were added in the evaluation, and in the overall cost analysis, the design team had to actually give an undertaking of how much lower their operating costs will be for winning the bid. So labels will make it easier for us. The key takeaway is we firmly believe that public procurement will transform the market overall, especially in India, where they set the standard for a lot of the private sector to follow. It should be done for optimum value as a upfront, integrated rather than an add-on criteria. Strong leadership is required. Any of these projects we did, it was all because there was somebody in the procurement team who believed in it and took a position that we will go by this. Also, incremental change. It's not, public procurement is tricky to make a drastic change, but if it's a planned incremental change over a period of time, we've seen this happen. Readiness of market. So for each one of these, there was an extensive market research that had to be done. Unfortunately, in a nascent market, that will be required. And finally, yes, you do need experts from across the domain to be able to help this thing. All of this and some of this is a part of a publication that we came out with, which is Advancing Green Cooling Through Sustainable Public Procurement. You'll find some of these examples there in this project, in this booklet. And we really see this change happening. GEM has adopted it. Ministry has issued notifications for energy efficiency procurement. So we really see it's the time for taking it to the next step and actually accelerating energy efficiency in public procurement. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tathagat, for that very detailed yet very precise presentation. Thank you for keeping up to the time. Ladies and gentlemen, as I now invite our next speaker, I would like to say a few words about him before I invite him to the podium. Our next speaker is the Senior Development Specialist from Japan International Cooperation Agency, Mr. Vipul Mishra. Mr. Vipul Mishra is, as I just mentioned, is a Senior Development Specialist in Japan International Cooperation Agency and is a very seasoned development professional with a career spanning for about 14 years. Mr. Vipul has held some very important position in the infrastructure sector and leading various pioneer projects in JICA. He has a civil engineering background and has obtained master's degree in transportation from the IIT Delhi. As a senior development specialist in GICA India, he is in charge of ODA loan procurement policy management and officer in charge of transportation project. With those words, may I now invite Mr. Vipul Mishra.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. As she mentioned, thank you very much for my introduction as well. Myself, Vipul Mishra, working as Senior Development Specialist in JICA, and I'm very obliged to be here as an esteemed forum and a wonderful audience from the industry. Today's my topic for presentation is Green Public Procurement for Mitigation Climate Change. This is a JICA perspective we are talking about, what JICA does, what JICA did in past year, what is the plan of JICA in the future as well. So this is JICA at a glance. So you can see that the Japan International Cooperation Agency is a ODA development implementing agency under the government of Japan. More precisely, it comes under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, MOFA. And with the mission of, in accordance with the Development Cooperation Charter, which is women security and equality growth. And we have a vision of aspiring a free, peaceful, and prosperous world where people can hope a better future and explore their diverse potential. And we have establishment in around 96 countries over the globe and cooperation in around 139 countries and regions. JICA has 20 global development strategies, which has 4 pillars. Main pillars is prosperity, people, peace, planet. And these 4 pillars are subcategorized into the 20 strategies, 5 each, starting from urban and ending with disaster management. And I'll be talking about this time is planet, which is climate change and all, which is the theme of this my presentation. So JICA has an official development assistance scheme, which has 3 main offerings: grant, technical cooperation, and financial investment. And this is a structure of the ODA. You can see that we do cooperate with the international organization, multilateral banks like ADB, World Bank, and many others. And we also have bilateral offerings, which has 3 main schemes, which is grant. Grants come with technical cooperation as well as the grant aids, and we have loans, government loans. So loans is it's towards to offer the government and as well as the private sector investments. So this is the JICA works in 2022. I've taken a snapshot in one slide. You can see that 528 projects we have performed in a year, out of which 272 projects were the sectoral projects and 256 projects as a kind of capacity building and training in Japan. So we do exchange of people from over the globe and invite people to Japan to get trained. So this is the overall snapshot of 528 projects, and you can see that our main cooperation in the transport sector, agriculture, disaster management, energy, and so on. And likewise, JICA has invested around over 1,000 billion yen, which is tuned to about $7 billion. This is a 1-year investment in the entire portfolio of JICA. And we have covered around 81 countries in that year, and this investments keep on increasing year by year. So JICA recently announced a sustainability policy, which is more precisely 3-4 months back, October 30, 2023. So this policy have been framed in accordance with the Paris Climate Agreement. So we aim to implement all the operations in the future in line with the Paris Climate Agreement, and with the adaptation of that international standard and calculating and reporting greenhouse gases emission in stages. So we have started this policy and implementing a new projects, and we'll keep on improvising our activities, operations. So this is a chart how we'll move ahead from now onwards. So human security, quality growth is the baseline of this our this policy. And starting in 2023, we'll aim to do new cooperation under the Paris Climate Agreement, and then 2030 is the first target by which we JICA as an organization will become a completely net zero green. And 2050 is to realize a sustainable world with the net zero mission. This is the target we have kept as of now. And GPP for mitigating the climate change. This is I think the work and the area we work, and this is the 3 focus area we work at: adaptation, mitigation, and resilience. So talking about adaptation, it is works on basically on the Paris Climate Agreement and co-benefiting approach for the climate change and countermeasures. Mitigation, I've given just to give an example that 70% of the cooperation which we did in 2022 was towards the mitigation and mainly in the transport sector. And yes, for resilience, we have an aim that for adaptation measures approach rather than the mitigation approach for resilient world, and definitely using the project level carbon management plan or life cycle cost, which my past speaker has just spoken about, life cycle cost. And JICA so far, it was 5-7 years back, and now the upcoming decades. So this is the plan which JICA has. JICA become the first Japanese organization created under the UNFCCC which was announced in 2010, the Green Climate Fund. So we become the part of it in 2017. And just an example, I have taken in as a project. So we have done one project in Timor-Leste under the Green Climate Fund, which is a small island nation in Southeast Asia. So we have done a forest conservation project, and which aim of around reduction of greenhouse gases by 4 million ton per year. Talking about climate finance in 2022, so it's just a snapshot that we of that ODA cooperation, that in mitigation we invested around 874 billions, and then adaptation 103 billion, and cross-cutting around means mitigation and adaptation around 77 billion, precisely around 85% and 9% and 7%. As I mentioned in the previous slide, at 2023 we announced the JICA sustainability policy, and which is aligned with the Paris Climate Agreement and stage-wise implementation of the climate activities. And we have a target in 2030 that currently our investment is around 1 trillion yen, which is going to be doubled by 2030. So, and with a target of reduction of greenhouse gases by 4 million ton per year, and net zero for JICA as an organization. And 2050, as government of Japan declared that 2020 to be the carbon neutral by 2050. This is also a target in our policy to go green. And in ODA implementation for climate change, in stages wise, as mentioned in my past slides, that we gradually moving towards the net zero. And this is a snapshot of for your information that in 2022, as I mentioned, that we have invested on 1 trillion yen. So it's resulted to be 3 million ton reduction in greenhouse gases. This is just a snapshot of the global green procurement policy adaptation. So I have taken 10 countries here, including India and Japan. So you can see that in the first column, there is a specific legislation of the GPP. So many countries have, except India and partially in China. And applicability, it's starting from the mandatory to partially mandatory and voluntarily as well. And defined goals, do all policies have a defined goal except a few, which is indicated in the red color. And construction specific GPP policy, yes, it's very important, and I think most of the policies already have this inclusion. And just the last column shows that how much a country invests in the procurement in terms of the GDP. So India and China tops around one third of their GDP in the procurement. And for the especially focus on the India, yes, is required an action on a policy level. So we are definitely would like to work on that. This is just a quick go through that how the procurement happens in JICA ODA operations. So basically, it's a conventional practice as in nowadays we used to have a single stage to envelope bids, which financial and technical bids. So this is the process of a procurement, starting from pre-qualification, bidding, contract negotiation, and here's the JICA's roles come. So we do involve in each stage of the policy, like we starting from the pre-qualification and the review of the contract. So we do involve in all the procurement stages with executing agencies. So this is the concept of life cycle cost in general. So if let's take, I have making a graph like showing the life cycle cost. If project is being considered as a cost basis or life cycle cost basis. So if you see that bid A and bid B, so bid A indicates that if the initial cost is high, it is like based on the life cycle cost, so initial cost is high, and over a period of time when it has a self life cycle of the project, so it eventually comes to a lower cost. And compared to bid B, which has an initial low cost, but over the period of time when it comes to the operation maintenance stage, so its cost goes up. So actually, it's a tendency that if you call a general tender, work tender, then definitely the low price bid has been considered. But if you consider the life cycle of the asset, the facility we develop, so eventually it comes with a lower cost to us. The landing cost is less. This is just a project study which we did on two case study which I have presented here as on the life cycle costs. One is in Uzbekistan. It's a Amu Burkha irrigation system rehabilitation project. So it was done on the evaluation of the combined efficiency value. So it was including in the bids. So if you see that in this irrigation project, so efficiency was converted of the motor and the equipments into some merits, and that merits were given to the bidders based on that. So combine efficiency value and enable the executing agency to evaluate the bid by valuing bid price. So who was the highest evaluated bidders in terms of the life cycle cost got the bid awarded. This is the second case in Indonesia, like Lumut Balai German Thermal Power. So it's in line with the country's plan that they wanted to shift to the green energy and inclusion of 5% of geothermal energy in the country. And this was also that the specific net mass consumption was also included in that bid evaluation stage. So overall, that these two projects was considered on the life cycle cost basis. So this is the two cases which I just wanted to show you. And I'm taking through that next stage, like what we have done so far in some of the countries and climate change aspect or biodiversity aspect. So it's just quickly take you through some cases in some countries. So this is the first case is Laos. The focus was mitigation. And this is a wind power project signed in 2023, renewable energy. So it was 600 megawatt power plant project. So to increase the green energy production. So with a target of greenhouse gases reduction of over 100,000 ton per year for next 10 years. Next case is from Philippines. This is an adaptation case, and we did making river channel improvement project in 2019. So it is a DRM sector project. So JICA has an ODA of around 37.9 billion in this project. And the result of this project is actually this is an old project starting like 1973, 50-year-old project. So we have nowadays from and as of date we have got some good results from this project. So reduction in the dust around 97% is Manila city, which is in Philippines, and damage to the public is around damage to the assets is around 85%. So we have got this results from this project. Next one is Samoa. This is an adaptation case. It is a technical cooperation. So we have developed a facility called Pacific Climate Change Center, which actually looks after the regional and monitoring, and it's it's helping in improving the climate resilience in the Pacific region. Now taking towards the next work of JICA in biodiversity initiative. So this is a case from India in Tamil Nadu, southern state. So we have done a one project. We are actually doing in one project. It's got signed in 2 years back. This is a forest conservation project and biodiversity and green project for climate change. So it's around 10.5 billion yen. And the overall target for this project is to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 243,000 ton per year. This is a by some activity for afforestation and restoration, coral reef, etc. There are many activities listed in the scope of work. This is the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is a mitigation project for the National Forest Resource Monitoring System. So it is already being implemented. So this is the kind of restoration agroforestry of the 5,000 hectares of the land. So we have done around 80% as on date, and approximately the result of this project is 2.5 million ton greenhouse gas reduction in first 10 years of the project, so starting from 2025. And this is the last case I want to present, that this is in the Caribbean area, that Central American and Caribbean area. So we developed a SICA region corporation, which has around 8 countries in that region. So we are helping in adaptation and strengthening the environmental government and transboundary region of the pilot activities. This is also a technical cooperation projects. We are helping in the capacity building. So these were the case studies from the JICA's work throughout the globe. And this is the almost the last slide of mine, and talking about the challenges and way forwards. So challenge, yes, there are common challenges is everyone have that. Yes, it's a balance, thin line approach on a push and pull phenomena. So it's definitely, when we go for green procurement, it's come with a cost and time. So it's one of the challenges we see in this green procurement. And talking about that energy efficiency, consumption, durability equipments, this energy efficiency and durability of equipments, yes, we do for the plant and machinery contracts, but it's somehow it's still a challenge for the infra projects, big infra projects, that how these can go towards the GPP policy. And converting environmental benefit in the bid price may be regarded as subjective render, because if we put these conditions as a in the tender, like country like India, so definitely the cost will high. And since it should come through a policy by a agency or a donor, so acceptance from the bidder is also a question. And these are quick way forwards, which we thought that as a JICA. So merit point system, which linked to life cycle cost, the technical and financial factors should be included, and evaluation done with the inclusion of both. Analysis of life cycle cost of the works, this is also important. And bidders to carry out all operations in the environment friendly manner, this should come from a enforced by the employment requirements. This should come from a policy. And considered factor other than nominal price in the financial evaluation, efficiency, compatibility, consumption efficiency, environmental benefit. These are the factors which should be included in the contract or any work which is to be announced. And definitely, yes, this is a scope. And for GPP, yes, there is lots of scope to be done, and government and the bilateral funding like World Bank, ADB, and other JICA and NDB can work together to work with the government and come up with a policy, or new projects should come under the GPP framework. There's some useful links I want to share which I used, and thank you very much for listening me. This was the oral perspective which JICA is, JICA does, and JICA will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vipul Mishra, for your wonderful presentation on green public procurement initiatives by the Japan International Cooperation Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, at the cost of being repetitive, we would have the question answer session by the end of the session. May I once again request you to kindly write your question on the question slips which are there on your tables. If not, you can find them in your delegate kits, or we can use the writing pad which has been kept on the respective tables. And we will forward those questions to our esteemed panelists on the stage, and we will address to all those questions by the end of the session. We move on to our next esteemed speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Dr. Shrikanta Panigraha, who is the Director General, Indian Institute of Sustainable Development. May I say a few words about him before I invite him to the podium? Dr. Shrikant Panigrahi is a leading global sustainability thought leader and this distinguished research fellow and director general Indian Institute of Sustainable Development, a public policy think tank and a scientific research institute at the New Delhi. He is a well known Indian policymaker and technocrat who has worked with the Government of India, United Nations Environment Programme, and the World Bank. He is a member to National Strategic Knowledge and few other missions on climate change to implement the National Action Plan on Climate Change in other government and UN expert committees and working groups on natural resources management, climate change adaptation, mitigation, and carbon finance, electric vehicles, and UN SDGs implementation. He has represented India in many COPs and international climate change negotiations in UNFCCC and also known as a chief architect of Indian carbon market. He is awarded the National Science Popularization Award by Honorable Prime Minister of India for his extraordinary contribution and commitments to popularize science among the common mass and is recognized by UNEP for his valuable contribution and leadership in catalyzing environment actions on World Environment Day on 2007. With those words, may I request Dr. Shrikant Panigraha to kindly share his thoughts.
It is indeed a great pleasure to spend some time to all of you, along with my distinguished panels, along with me, Madam Miss Anna Tathagat, Tanmay Tathagat, my friend, and Bipul from JICA. So, we are here to discuss one of the most important subject of the time, that is procurement, public procurement and green procurement versus sustainable procurement. So far as procurement is concerned, it is extremely important. All of you are aware that we are going through a very difficult time today. If the planet is not there, we are not there. It's our only home, irrespective of country boundaries, going beyond. So, to protect the planet, we have many challenges. There is a huge biodiversity loss. Almost 1/3 of the species has been extincted. Agricultural production has gone down. The ocean temperatures have increased. The warm currents has become cold currents. The cold currents has become warm currents. They have changed their path. The air pressure belts has been shifted, and the global temperature, average temperature, is constantly increasing. We are in a alarming stage. So climate change is a crisis which not only the planet, not only nations, but all of us are encountering in every day, in every moment. To protect ourselves in our own interest, it is become inevitable. Whatever we do, each of our actions, each of our thoughts needs to converge towards protecting the planet and tackling the climate change and to reduce the emissions, largely mitigating climate change. So, under this broader umbrella, the public procurement policy cannot be exceptional. It has to be a part of the overall greening system or the sustainable system. I represent Indian Institute of Sustainable Development, which is a public policy think tank and a scientific research organization. I am Distinguished Research Fellow and Director General there. We have a partnering initiative which is known as Carbon Minus India. Both of these are dedicatedly involved in the process for last 15 years. Very recently, we organized Global Sustainability Summit in Vigyan Bhavan, Plenary Hall, where 37 countries from the nooks and corner of the world, around 1100 plus participants participated. I am not going much about the sustainability policy of the institute due to lack of time and directly landing on the topic. India, by culture, by ethos, by history, traditionally is always remained as a global leader in sustainability and decarbonization. Now we have a Make in India policy. Recently, we organized G20, and we have given a special leadership into sustainability sector in G20 that you can see in Delhi declarations. And so this topic is very crucial at this point of time to discuss. The public procurement system in every country has its own challenge. Public procurements have different guidelines, different thought process. There are different kind of vendors producing different kind of products, following different process. Bringing all of them together and unifying is a very big challenge, which World Bank is playing a very pivotal role, along with international organizations like UNEP, UNFCCC, in the entire process. If you have seen the UNFCCC's drive of 2018, it strongly argued that let us tell it sustainable procurement, public procurement, not necessarily green procurement, public procurement. India is spending around 20 lakh crore. That's a huge amount, which is roughly around 22% of its GDP in procurement. My colleague Tanmaya told you he discussed two sectors, the air conditioning sectors and building sectors. So we have, if you see, procurement is such a big area, right from a needle procurement up to a aeroplane, everything belongs to procurement, public procurement. And all these procurement system has to be very much compatible along with planetary requirements, national priorities, and UN SDGs, which Madam Anna told you in the beginning of these sessions. How to eliminate poverty and how to share the prosperity. That should be the mantra to achieve 17 UN SDGs while taking all of us along together. We need to move where sustainable procurement, public procurement cannot be ignored. India, every country's GDP is hugely influenced, driven by its public procurement system and linked to its GDP. So there are few countries. This also discussed by my previous colleague, Bipul, where in Canada, US, Japan, public procurement, green procurement is mandatory or compulsory. In a country like India, it is still under voluntary category, and in China it is partially mandatory. So all of us are worried because to doing the work meticulously is very difficult and challenging. Many of our business, industries, and people from other sectors also adopting the path of greenwashing. So green has become a word at times controversial. Who is defining green? How? Green is taken for granted. It is an open-ended term without a very definition having its own boundary. That is why the UNEP put forward the sustainable public procurement system or policy which needs to be developed. If we are discussing how public procurement system can mitigate climate change, we need to come the product and process, that is life cycle. It has been discussed. There are different life cycle stages. So it's very important. GPP must be replaced by SPP, not green, sustainable public procurement. I am a strong supporter of sustainable public procurement and not the green public procurement. But most of the world is still right now not only writing terms but also in practice are confined to GPP, including India. And because challenges are huge. These are the 6 type of this thing green washing that takes place. Hidden trade-off, irrelevance, no proof, lesser reveals, vagueness, thieving. So this is happening a lot in so-called green public procurement. And we must, all of us, has to be serious and to retrieve the planet, to make it more livable is not an easy task. Each of us has to play our role, and for which we need to prevent greenwashing at all cost. So what is a sustainable public procurement, SPP? There are many definitions. I am not getting into jargons due to lack of time. All the UN SDGs, right from SDG 1 to 17, are aligned with sustainable procurement policy. So far as climate change is concerned, environmental indicators are concerned, few are listed here as 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 13, but all of them have a direct and indirect relation with sustainable procurement policy. The most important being the goal number 12, sustainable consumption and production patterns. And particularly 12.7 says us promote public procurement practices that are sustainable in accordance with national policies and priorities. Now coming to the green procurement, which is adopted globally, there are 3 major pillars of sustainability. All of you know the economy, environment, and social. Many of them in procurement jargons or dictionary also consider law, because many of the national, international procurement related policies is governed by law. It has been already discussed, the life cycle costing. What is life cycle costing? Say it a product, it has different stages of evolution. Stage 1, after that stage 2 comes, like that. In each stage, all the process has to be preferably natural and renewable and replenishable, rather than it is highly chemical intensive, toxic, or involving hazardous waste, or some higher degree of plastics, which takes a lot of time for decompositions. All these things are there. But so all the life cycle stages, in each stage, it has to be environmentally sustainable. All the indicators through audits we need to follow, but it has to equally cost effective as well. So the life cycle cost of a product, how that is affordable to the market, that angle is also very important. So these are the issues related with business research and business management. I have told you about the three pillars of sustainability: environmental, social, and economic. So that involves a lot of impacts and opportunities. And all these impacts, particularly in public procurement, sustainable public procurement systems, has been listed out for your informations. I'm not going into detail of them. Now, you get a ultimately sustainable product, but you are not aware uh, uh, how it has been packed. The packing is been done. So there are different tools and instruments which are referred in SPP, Sustainable Public Procurement. So what are they? According to priorities, it is a study given by UNEP. So these are the various important issues that involves sustainable public procurement system or policy of organizations. The climate change policy goes through procurement. The eco levels, like in India, you are aware that eco mark, which is developed by BIS and Bureau of Indian Standards and Ministry of Environment and Forest. Bureau of Energy Efficiency has star ratings, which has also been told in the morning by my previous speakers. Training and capacity building, life cycle costing, monitoring and reporting. So I'm not going into details of that. So what are the challenges? They are in red, and the solutions, preferable solutions, are in green. Most of the people has bias that anything sustainable is costly. It's very expensive. But you must have seen a graph. Initially, maybe sustainable systems become little costly, but the overall the cost is quite cost effective, or life cycle cost is comparatively less. So all these challenge has the appropriate solutions, and which is very relevant in the context of SPP. Now, in India, most of the public sectors are quite aware, and many of the corporate sectors are also very much aligned to adopt just for their branding, for enhancing their business at the international market. They are going for green procurement, so-called green procurement, or sustainable public procurement systems. And it is all depends what are the prime drivers, driver, which is basically sustainable production and consumption. And in CPSUs, that is central public sector undertakings, Ministry of Finance, the sir is here. We have discussed yesterday how government has come up with its guidelines, as well as the other generic voluntary guidelines. And although every institute have their individual policies, and as a overall national guidelines are also done, and it has been taken quite seriously comparatively. One of the best reference I found, that uh, stock taking study on green public procurement in India. It's very relevant study, is done by World Bank India Country Office, particularly with Indian context, with different case studies, and what are the government's thought, and how it is perceived by different stakeholders, and along with case studies and comparisons. It's a wonderful document. I will recommend all of you to go through it. So regarding GPP, SPP, and how the overall sustainability can be achieved through the procurement with respect to the procurement policy. Now, since the climate change mitigation is there, how climate change mitigation can take place? I being very much deeply into the process, I must tell you, we need to find out the carbon footprint of a product which is supplied in the name of green procurement or sustainable procurement. Carbon footprint, water footprint, and ecological footprint. These are very crucial. These three footprints we should try to neutralize, to reduce and make it zero if possible, and if not, to minimize to the extent it is possible. So it is easy to say, difficult to do. To become carbon neutral, we need to adhere that all scope 1, scope 2 indicators has been considered while assessing the greenhouse gas emissions of that particular product in its life cycle. When we consider scope 3, the gentleman who made a wonderful presentation today morning from New Development Bank, he told very clearly that scope 3 emissions is extremely essential to reduce, which is indirect emissions by not by directly by the organization itself, but the other depending factors, which also needs to be reduced to be net zero. There is a difference between net zero and carbon neutral and carbon net zero. So for that, scope 3 emissions cannot be ignored. In many sectors, till now, we have not adopted yet the scope 3. But it's high time after the COP28, which happened in Dubai, whole world is very much serious to consider scope 3 to start their journey towards net zero. And you can see wonderful graphs here where there are many sectoral analysis, and the darkest blue shade is scope 1, the medium is scope 2, and the lightest is the scope 3. And it is iron and steel sector, power sector, fuel sector, defense security sector. In defense sectors, 50 to 60% public procurement happens, like defense aircrafts to defense vehicles to everything. So it is a very crucial issue in the case of defense sector. So emissions needs to be reduced to the extent possible, considering their footprints, so that the entire product and process can be certified net zero. In the entire SPP, that is Sustainable Public Procurement System, the continuous innovation, continuous improvements, and continuous interactions, taking learnings from the monitoring and building it up further is extremely important. And again, in this circle, you can always see the value sustainment, value capture, and value enablement. This is how the SPP, Sustainable Public Procurement, can happen. Once you achieved, that is not enough. It has to sustain in a longer level. India is well known for its digital public infrastructure. In G20, we have a huge, we earn huge respect from all the participating countries and from the entire nooks and corner of the planet for our UPI and all kind of other digital public infrastructure building. And India is helping many countries. The figure is changing every day by giving them free technical assistance to enhance their digital public infrastructure, and particularly in finance sector. And since the G20 is over, and in present G20, Brazil also signed an agreement where India is playing huge role in 3 sectors, including this as one of the prime sectors where I am deeply involved. So, digital public infrastructure, we need to build, we need to develop a portal with adequate database-based analysis. We need to consider green leveling and green standards. JAM, all of us, you know, we need to bring more advanced level of conditions in JAM tendering process, and it will all happen. You see how the situation at home is there. We are having 2 world wars. The other 2 world wars anytime can emerge. There is a lack of distrust, mistrust, disbelief. We all are struggling for not only for financial stability, but also in a post-COVID world, but also we are struggling for trust among ourselves. So, so how the world can achieve sustainability and through one of its major instruments, that is SPP, is remained as a challenge. Things are very well known, what is to be done in SPP and how it is to be done. There is enough knowledge base in the planet, but we need to have stronger determinations, not at leadership level, not at very macro level, but also in micro level by each one of us. I had presenting 2 case studies, which I will keep very short. Tata Motors and CPWD. One is government, purely government organization, Central Public Works Organizations, and another is Tata Motors. They both are very proud Indian initiatives who have put enough efforts not only in GPP but also towards SPP. And I am not going into details. This is very much available in their special sustainable procurement policy documents, how they are committed to become net zero and what are the efforts they are doing to achieve it, not only in climate change sectors, but also in water reduction sectors, resource utilization sectors, and the ecological sectors. And these are the key milestones they have adopted, and this is their procurement policy of the Tata Motors. CPWD is a proud Government of India initiatives. It has, was in the center of discussion during G20, India's presidential positioning in last year. So CPWD has a sustainability policy, although it doesn't have a sustainable public procurement policy. It follows Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, Government of India's procurement policy. And there are 3 important key factors there: market development assistance, financial assistance, and regulatory initiatives. These are the insights of CPWD's public procurement policy. So you can go through. I would like to thank you for your patience to listen me, and if you have any questions, we can always take off subsequently. Thank you very much.